Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about the decision by the Appellate Division, the mid-level appeals court in New York, to sustain and continue to keep in place the gag order that Justice Juan Merchan imposed against Donald Trump during the trial. I see this as pretty important for a few reasons. Just the basic holding is, look, you still have Merchan loosened it a little. He said, you can't, jurors have been dismissed, so we can't keep Trump from talking about them. And certain witnesses he can go after now, Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels. But otherwise, the gag order remains in place, including its basic command: do not try to mess with the witnesses in this case, including law enforcement agents, people who will be potentially testifying, both to safeguard their own safety, but also to not corrupt the jury pool in any way. Now, what jury pool? They've already ruled, but there's still jurisdiction here that Merchan retains. There's still, among other things, the possibility of a new trial, new proceedings, and the like. Oh, and one other thing the Appellate Division said is, forget about this. We're going to keep it in place at least till sentencing, which is September 18th. What I think is especially important here is that it means that even though Trump said, okay, I've now been convicted, get him off my back, the court has recognized he is still under the jurisdiction and potential command of Justice Merchan. In other words, by virtue of this being an ongoing proceeding, he still has been brought to heel. If he does things that are totally out of line, he can be disciplined by the court up to and including what the court had told him before, jail. And it just means in general, there's no gap of coverage. In other words, Trump is, I wrote this at the time, once he was convicted, really once he was arrested, he comes into the grips of a judicial system that he no longer has the privilege of an assumption of being an innocent person. He's a guilty person, 34 times a guilty person, and that has immediate and lasting consequences. For example, if everyone's focusing, will Merchan impose a few months of prison time on Trump? If he does, by the way, I think everyone agrees it would be stayed until he goes through his appeal, so no chance the Rikers Island door swings shut on him while he's running for president. But even so, will Merchan do that? But whether or not he does it, I think he's going to impose a lengthy term of probation. And probation involves all kinds of impingements on liberty, all kinds of requirements that Trump, who has always done whatever he wanted and snubbed his nose at the judicial system and government, all kinds of ways in which he has to say pretty please to Judge Merchan, to travel, for example, make certain kinds of statements, even though he's saying they are First Amendment protected. Potentially, remember, it wouldn't be normally this stringent, but he had to get special permission during trial to attend his son's graduation. It's just, I was at the trial, and there was a, real palpable sense, and a satisfying one, that he had been brought to heel by the justice system. Whatever the jury decided, and of course they decided to convict him, but he was not the boss in that room. The judge was the boss in that room, and that continues now. So when the judge says, I'm still the boss and this gag order remains, he is able to do that by virtue of the original jurisdiction over Trump, the fact that he's now been convicted, and the appeals court in New York very strongly reaffirmed that principle. And I basically think that Trump is going to be under the jurisdiction of a court, except if it's held in abeyance because he's elected president and the probably Supreme Court says it need be. But that's a big possibility, but leaving that aside, for the rest of his life, in probation, possibly in jail. And that's what this drives home. He is not just his own person anymore. He cannot do whatever the heck he feels like. Rather, he is subject to the jurisdiction and the orders of the court, and in this case, as bitterly as he complains that it somehow abridges his First Amendment rights to essentially say lies about the actual proceedings here. The court has drawn a gag order, permits him to, a lot of sensitivity to his First Amendment rights, his campaigning rights, etc. So it's drawn with real thought. Of course, he's still a candidate, and the court recognizes it. But the main point is it's up to the court, not Donald Trump. Donald Trump remains a convict, remains his liberty is in some sense subject to what the court says. And as I see it, absent winning the election, that's going to be the case for the rest of his life, probation and whatever else is added by the other trials. He has crossed the line and is no longer an innocent man. In the language and in the context of this very proceeding, what the Court of Appeals, the Appellate Division, the Intermediate Court in New York said was this. Trump says that's a whole new day because the trial has ended and I've been convicted. And the court says, the fair administration of justice necessarily includes sentencing, which is a critical stage of a criminal proceeding. We're not done with you yet. That ends with the final disposition in a criminal court when it's gone all the way up. And of course, at that point, if he's subject to any kind of sentence, including probation, it remains. So Merchan did not act in excess of jurisdiction by maintaining the narrowly tailored protections in paragraph B. And the people's submissions show that the threats, which are what really prompted and triggered this gag order, remain real, and the court, most importantly, retains the power to deal with them. That's not going away until he's sentenced, and of course, if the sentence imposes and includes probation and a term of imprisonment, it won't go away then. Judge Merchan is not through with him by a long shot. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.